On this special day, we wish everyone a good Chodesh. May we all be blessed with a good month, a month full of brachas and simchas for us and our families. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our Tanya Shiur. Welcome to our Parsha Shiur, Today we are studying Parshas Va'era. If you have a chumash in front of you, you can open to the beginning of the Parsha. I'm going to skip a couple of verses in the beginning. I'm going to start with verse 6. Perek Vav, Pasuk Vav. At this point, again, of course, we're all familiar with the story. At this point, Hashem has sent Moshe Rabbeinu to the Jewish people and to Paroi. To Paroi, Moshe's message is, let my people go. And to the Jews, Moshe's message is, okay, people, it's time to go. But at the end of last week's Parsha, Moshe's mission seems to be met with failure. Not just failure, but in fact, the whole thing seems to backfire pretty badly. First of all, Paroi says no. Notwithstanding the miracles that Moshe and Aaron did, Paroi says no. In fact, Paroi accuses the Jews of being lazy. Who ever heard of that? Paroi says, get back to work. And dreit nish kein Kop, because, Paroi spoke Yiddish. So Paroi is not interested, and Paroi says no. Secondly, Paroi actually ups the ante, and he makes life worse for the Jews. He makes their work even more difficult, and conditions in Egypt become harsher for the Jewish people. The Jews, in turn, retaliate against Moshe Rabbeinu. They accuse him of coming, and instead of helping, instead of making things better, they tell Moshe, you've only made things worse. So the expression the Jews use, again, this is the end of last week's Parsha, they say to Moshe, Hiv'ashtem es reichenu, you've made our breath smell, you've given us a foul odor. It's like the Jews, it has different interpretations, but it's like the Jews find themselves even more repulsive in the eyes of the Egyptians. And everything seems to be worse off since Moshe Rabbeinu and his brother Aaron arrive on the scene with predictions of redemption. So Moshe turns to Hashem and says, Hashem, what's going on? Why did you send me? And Parshas Va'era is Hashem's response. Again, I'm going to skip the first couple of verses. There's enough material there for 6 shiurim, but I'm going to go. We're going to start from verse 6. Lochein amor livnei Yisrael. Again, Parshas Va'era, Perek Vav, Pasuk Vav. Hashem is speaking to Moshe, and Hashem is responding to Moshe's accusations. Moshe's accusations again here are that instead of things getting better, things are only getting worse. L'chein, says Hashem to Moshe, therefore, amor livnei Yisrael, speak to the Jews and tell them, quote, Ani Hashem. Tell them, I am God. V'hoitzeisi eschem mitachas sivlois Mitzrayim. I will take them out from underneath the suffering of Egypt. V'hitzalti eschem me'avedasam. I will save them. I will save you, I will save you from their work. V'ga'alti eschem, and I will redeem you, bizroya netuya, with an outstretched arm. Ubishvatim gedolim, and with great signs, with great miracles. V'lakachti eschem li la'am, and I will take you to me as a nation. V'hayisi lachem le'elakim, and I will be your God. V'datem, and you will know, ki ani Hashem alekeichem, that I am Hashem your God. Amoitzi eschem, who takes you out mitachas sivlois Mitzrayim, from under the suffering of Egypt. And I will bring you to the promised land, the land flowing with milk and honey. Right? You know that joke? Sorry. You know that joke about, this is not part of the verses. This is important Kesselman commentary. Do you know the joke about the guy who said he went to the United States of America because he heard the roads were paved with gold? Do you know this word? He heard the roads were paved with gold, so he went to the United States. He says, when I got there, I discovered 3 things. Number 1, the roads were not paved with gold. Number 2, the roads weren't paved at all. Number 3 was going to be me who was going to be paving them. So in this case, Hashem tells the Jews, listen, Hashem tells Moshe, go tell the Jews that I'm going to bring them to the promised land, to the land. Hashem asosiyas yodi, that I've already sworn. To give it Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and I'm going to give it to you, my Rosh, as an inheritance. Ani Hashem. All right. As far as speeches go, as far as promises go, as far as commitments go, this is as good as it gets. We drink 4 cups of wine every year on the night of Pesach because of this speech that Hashem tells Moshe to go and give the Jewish people. I mean, this is as far as presentations go. This is all the way up there with the, with Abraham Lincoln's speech. I mean, it's just fantastic. Hashem tells Moshe, go tell the Jews, V'hitzesi, I'm going to take you out. V'hitzalti, I'm going to save you. V'ga'alti, I'm going to redeem you. V'lakachti eschem lila, I'm going to take you to me as a nation. I'll be your God. It's going to be amazing. You, for all eternity, you'll know that I'm the one who saved you. And I'll bring you to the land that I promised Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and I'll give it to you as an inheritance. This is Hashem's answer. Hashem says to Moshe, go and tell the Jews, the time of suffering is over. The time of redemption has arrived. The 400 years are up. Everything that's supposed to happen has happened. Everything that's need to happen is over. The era of this bitter and painful Golus is over. Tell the Jews to put on their dancing shoes. Tell the Jews to start celebrating. Tell the Jews good times are upon us. It's amazing. Tell the Jews it's over. Tell the Jews the good news. It's gewaldig. With me? Pasuk Tes, Vayedaber Moshe Kain el Bnei Yisrael. And Moshe does exactly as he's supposed to do. He repeats what Hashem tells him to the Jewish people. He goes to the Jews and he says, V'hitzesi v'hitzalti v'ga'alti v'lakachti v'hevesi. It's fantastic. V'lo shamu el Moshe. They don't listen to Moshe. Or maybe in better words, I would say, they don't even hear what Moshe Rabbeinu is saying. Because of their short breath and their hard labor. The Jews are not receiving this message at all. They're not picking it up. They're not absorbing this. It's falling on deaf ears. There's nothing going on. Moshe Rabbeinu cannot penetrate the Jewish people. They're not here. Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, V'hitzesi v'hitzalti v'ga'alti v'lakachti. The Jews, they're just not receiving this. Moshe's words are not going into their ears. They're in Yiddish we say they're not kalim. They're not receiving this. They're not vessels. It doesn't mean anything to them. Now, by the way, note, the Torah doesn't say that they didn't believe Moshe Rabbeinu. The Torah doesn't say that they asked Moshe Rabbeinu for proof. The Torah doesn't say that they had questions on what Moshe Rabbeinu said. The Torah didn't say they had challenges or complaints or anything like that. No. The Torah says that notwithstanding, the Torah doesn't say that they thought Moshe Rabbeinu made it up. It doesn't say that either. The Torah says the Jews just couldn't hear what Moshe Rabbeinu was saying. They just, it couldn't, it was like he was speaking a different language. They couldn't hear it. Okay. I want to focus for today on the next 3 verses. 1, 2, 3, the next 3 verses. Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe, Hashem speaks to Moshe and says to him, well, that didn't work, right? That wasn't very productive. So you know what Hashem says? Boi daber el Paroi melech Mitzrayim. Go speak to Paroi, the king of Egypt. Vishalach es b'nei Yisrael me'artzei, and he will send the Jewish people out of his land. Vayedaber Moshe, so Moshe says, Lifnei Hashem, Moshe says to Hashem, what are you talking about? You want me to go speak to Paroi? Hein b'nei Yisrael lo shomu elai. The Jewish people didn't listen to me. Ve'eich yishma'eni Paroi. How do you expect Paroi to listen to me? V'ani aral sfosayim, Moshe says, I have blocked lips. I'm not a communicator. The Gemara calls this a kal v'chomer. Moshe says to Hashem, if the Jewish people didn't listen to me, for sure Paro is not going to listen to me. If the previous part was met with failure, then this is for sure doomed to failure. If that didn't work, how in heaven's name is this going to work? Moshe says, I feel like we're just throwing more and more at an investment here, which just keeps going further and further south. First, you sent me to Paroi, that didn't work. Now you're sending me to the Jews, that didn't work. Now you're sending me back to Paroi. How's that going to work? Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe vel Aaron, and Hashem spoke to Moshe and Aaron, Vayitzavim el bnei Yisrael ve'el Paroi melech Mitzrayim. He commanded Moshe and Aaron to go to the Jews and Paroi. Lahoitzias bnei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim. Okay. Again, there's of course much more, but I'm going to stop reading here, and we'll try to analyze or dissect these psukim at least for a couple of minutes. Okay. What happens? Let's go through this again. First, Moshe goes to Paroi. That doesn't work. Paroi doesn't accept it, doesn't believe, makes things worse for the Jews. Then Hashem sends Moshe to the Jews. Hashem sends Moshe to the Jews. Moshe goes to the Jews, tells them everything Hashem has promised. They don't hear what Moshe Rabbeinu is saying. Okay, Hashem says to Moshe, go back to Paroi. So Moshe goes back to Paroi. So Moshe says, what's the point in going back to Paroi? If the Jews don't listen to me, for sure Paroi is not going to listen to me. Pasuk Yud Gimel. Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe vel Aaron. Hashem says to Moshe and Aaron, he tells them to go to the Jewish people and Paroi and take the Jewish people out of Mitzrayim. End of conversation. Now, of course, the commentaries all struggle terribly to understand. Again, we get the general story. The general story is, of course, is very clear here. Hashem is doubling down. He's digging in his heels. Hashem says, we're going to get the Jewish people out of Mitzrayim, for sure. It's going to happen. This is the way it's going to be. Beautiful. But the commentaries all struggle here with the structure, with the storyline. What's going on? It seems like Hashem doesn't have the plan figured out here. First, go to Paroi. All right, that didn't work. Now go to the Jews. All right, that didn't work. Now go back to Paroi. Moshe says, what's going on here? The Jews didn't listen. Paroi is for sure not going to listen. Hashem says, so go to both. And that's where the Parsha ends. The Torah goes on to talk about something else. What's it going to help to go to both? If the Jews didn't listen and Paroi didn't listen, then how is going to both of them at once going to help? Now what? Now they're both going to listen. So again, the first question that the commentaries grapple with here in the understanding of this Parsha, of this story, is what is the structure here? In other words, how does this thing get built? How do we build the storyline here? Or in better words, what's Hashem trying to do by sending Moshe back and forth? Paroi, the Yidden, back to Paroi, when Moshe objects to both. Okay, that's question number one. Question number two, the Torah says that the Jewish people didn't listen to Moshe. It doesn't mean that they didn't listen. It doesn't just mean that they didn't listen. It means they couldn't. Well, we're going to talk about this for a few minutes. It means they couldn't hear what Moshe was saying. But the Torah tells us why the Jewish people couldn't hear what Moshe. Why couldn't they hear what Moshe was saying? The hard work that they were doing, the short breath from the harsh labor that they were in, put them in a psychological position where they couldn't hear what Moshe was saying. Okay, that's what the Torah says. So Hashem says, go to Paroi. Moshe says, wait a second. If the Jews didn't listen, how is Paroi going? If the Jews didn't listen, for sure Paroi is not going to listen. This is also difficult to understand. What do you mean? The reason why the Jewish people didn't listen is because they were working too hard. They were too short-breathed. They couldn't. Paroi wasn't working hard. Paroi wasn't short-breathed. So what's the problem? What kind of a kal v'chomer is this? If the Jews didn't listen, for sure Paroi won't listen. What's the connection? The Jews didn't listen because they couldn't. Paroi had no koitzer ruach, and Paroi had no avodah kosher. So why is Moshe concerned that Paro won't listen? That's question number 2. Especially since, let's add to this question, especially since Moshe has already communicated with Paro about this. Moshe and Paro have already had a conversation. The conversation didn't go well. Moshe didn't get what he wanted, but Paro listened. The Torah doesn't say that Paro, the Torah never tells us that Paro didn't listen. Paro listened. Paro didn't like what he heard. Paro retaliated. Paro didn't give us the response that we wanted, but Paro heard. The Jews were the ones who didn't respond. The Jews were the ones who didn't retaliate. The Jews were the ones who didn't get angry or worked up, right? It doesn't even say that the Jews complained when Moshe talked to them. That's when you know you're in trouble, by the way, when Jews don't complain. When Jews complain, then you know everything is fine. When they don't, that's when you know you're in trouble. Because they couldn't even hear what he was saying. That's a very different reaction to Paro. So why is Moshe Rabbeinu saying, if the Jews won't listen to me, for sure Paro won't listen to me? It's a difficult kal v'chomer to understand. What's the connection between one and the other? And then, of course, the greatest question of them all. What's up with these speeches? Hashem is telling Moshe, go tell the Jews, v'hoitzeisi, v'hitzalti, v'ga'alti, v'lakachti, baba. Why the necessity for one more speech? We went through this already in Parsha Shmois. Moshe came to the Jews, he came to Paro, and he told them, listen, it's time for you guys to go free. It's time for Paro to send you free. And this is what's supposed to happen. And he had signs, right? He had signs that the Jewish people, in case the Jewish people wouldn't believe him, he had signs to prove his point to Paro. He had all sorts of signs. And he went and he obviously said whatever it was that he had to say. He told it to the Jews, he told it to Paro. Paro retaliated, fine. What is benefited here from one more speech? Hashem, and noch nishtam a speech, every child who studies about Pesach, one of the first things they learn, etc. What is Hashem saying here? The question the commentaries ask here is, what in this what is Hashem saying here that hasn't been said before already? That what? That Hashem is going to take the Jewish people out of Mitzrayim, nu mazel tov. Why the need for such such an eloquent, so much flowery, we're still right. We're still drinking cups of wine over these expressions. What are these expressions telling us that we didn't know before from Parsha Shmos? All right, these are some of the many questions that the commentaries here deal with. So again, let's just review quickly. Question number 1: what's the structure here? Why is Moshe going back and forth? Why is Hashem sending Moshe back and forth? Paro, the Jews, Paro, both. What's meant to be achieved? What's the purpose of the structure here? Question number 2: why does Moshe say, if the Jews didn't listen to me, Paro for sure won't listen to me? What's the connection? The Jews can't listen because they're working too hard. Paro is not working that hard. And question number 3: what's achieved out of one more promise or one more series of promises by Hashem? I'm going to take you out of Mitzrayim. No? Gibshain. Instead of making speeches, deliver, right? Imagine you go to a restaurant and you order and the waiter comes out half hour later. Oh, is there a meal cooking for you in the kitchen? Ooh. No, but I'm hungry. Give me the meal. Oh, it's coming. Don't worry. Half hour later, is there a meal cooking for you in the kitchen? Ah, gewaldig. Genukshan, I'm waiting for an hour. I'm starving. Imagine the waiter comes out 210 years later, 400 years later. Oh boy, is there a meal coming? No. It seems almost counterintuitive. It's like the Jews have been hearing this for so long. Enough already. Okay, these are some of the questions that are discussed here. Of course, there are many more, but these are some of them. Okay. Let's start with this. The Klayokar explains that when Hashem came to the Jews and told them, V'hoitzeisi v'hitzalti v'go'alti v'lakachti, I'll take you out of Egypt, I'll save you, I'll redeem you, I'll take you, etc., etc. He says, if you pay attention to the verses throughout, from the beginning of the Parsha, throughout that whole series, for the first 10, 11 psukim, there's no mention anywhere of Paroi. This is a fantastic observation. In all of the expressions, V'hoitzeisi v'hitzalti v'go'alti v'lakachti, Hashem only talks about Mitzrayim. I'm going to take you out of Mitzrayim. I'm going to save you from Mitzrayim. I'm going to redeem you from Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim. There's no mention anywhere of Paroi. Now, why is that? What's the big deal? Why is that so important? Says the Klayokar, what Hashem meant when Hashem came to the Jews and said, V'hoitzeisi v'hitzalti v'go'alti v'lakachti, what was meant here was like this. Hashem came to the Jews and said, you know something, my dear Jews? I actually needed to give Paroi the opportunity to let you go. I needed to give Paroi an opportunity to let you go. For whatever reason, if we have time today, we'll get into that. I needed to give Paroi an opportunity to let you go. But Paroi didn't take that opportunity. Paroi didn't take it. He refused. Not only he refused, he doubled down. He made life worse for the Jews, etc. So Hashem comes to the Jews and says, I'm done with Paroi. I don't need to work with him anymore. Finished. I'm going to talk to you, the Jews. Listen to what I'm telling you, says Hashem. I'm going to save you from Mitzrayim. I'm going to take you out of Mitzrayim. I'm going to redeem you from Mitzrayim. I'm going to take you to Eretz Yisrael. At this point, what Hashem meant was, if you, the Jews, trust in me, Hashem, and if you, the Jews, are ready to be redeemed, and if you, the Jews, says Hashem, will take my hand and allow yourselves to be redeemed, you can walk out of Mitzrayim without Paro's consent. I guess the way the Klayokar explains it. I gave Paroi an opportunity to be involved in your freedom, in your redemption. I gave him a chance to redeem himself spiritually by being the one to facilitate your exodus. He didn't take it. I've been Yoitza. I've fulfilled my obligation to Paroi. Now it's your turn, Jewish people. Now you can leave without Paroi. At this point, when Hashem said to the Jews, V'hoitzeisi v'hitzalti v'go'alti v'lakachti, Hashem gave the Jews an opportunity to stand up and be liberated with or without Paro's consent. In other words, what he's saying is, if after the Jews had heard these words from Moshe Rabbeinu, these 4 expressions of redemption, these 5 expressions of redemption, if after the Jews would have heard them, they would have taken them to heart, they would have physically stood up and miraculously walked out of Egypt, and the whole thing would be finished. The whole thing would be over in a moment. Hashem came to Moshe and told him, go to the Jewish people and tell the Jewish people like this. Until now, for whatever reason, the ball was in Paro's court. It was up to him to open the gates of Egypt and let you go. But Paro didn't take that opportunity, again, for whatever reason. Now the ball is in your court, the Jewish people. And I'm telling you directly, no Paro. The time of your redemption has arrived. Go free. If the Jewish people would have heard this message, if they would have been vessels to it, if they would have taken it, they would have picked themselves up and would have walked out without looking over their shoulders, and the whole thing would be finished. There would be no need for 10 plagues. There would be no need for Paroi to be warned over and over again. There would be no need for Paroi to be worked with at all. Nothing. They would have simply picked themselves up and walked out. And that would have been the end of it. I want to give two examples. One is a little bit of a sensitive example for this, but it's an example nevertheless, and you'll bear with me. The sensitive example is this. I once did some rabbinic counseling for a young man, Loyalenu. He suffered with kleptomania. So again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist, but to the best of my limited understanding, this young man had in his youth a fantastic ability to steal things from stores. Until, unfortunately, he got caught, whatever. But he was amazing at it. So he on one occasion, we were having this conversation, he said to me, you know what the best way, well, he wasn't trying to teach me how to steal, but he said, the most effective way of sometimes stealing something from a store, Rahman al-Islam, is just putting it in your wagon and just walking right out. So to speak, hidden in plain sight. If you do it without apology, if you do it without explanation, if you do it without a guilty look, without being suspicious, and you just walk right out the middle, nobody would ever assume that you took it without paying. But you have to own it. That's an example in a negative sense. Here's the example in the positive sense. Hashem came to the Jewish people and said, if you will own your redemption, if you will own your destiny, if you will own your identity, and if you will celebrate who you are, you don't need paroi. You don't need permission from anybody to be free. Just stand up and be free. Walk right out and you'll be done. The other example that I think of when I studied this in the Klei Yakar is a Rashi in Chumash Dvorim. In Chumash Dvorim, Moshe Rabbeinu talks to the Jews, and he tells the Jews how when it was time for them to go into Israel, into Eretz Yisrael, he told the Jews, quote, "Boyu u'reshu es haaretz," come and inherit the land. And Rashi writes there the same idea. He says, if the Jewish people would have just walked into Eretz Yisrael without sending spies, without asking questions, with perfect belief in Hashem, if they would have just walked into Eretz Yisrael, they would not have needed, quote, klei zayin, they would not have needed weaponry, and there would be no need for milchama, there would be no need for war. They would have just walked in, said, excuse me, you're sitting in my seat, this is my spot, and it would have been theirs and it would have been over. It's the same thing over here. It's such an incredibly powerful point. Moshe Rabbeinu came to the Jews and said, Hashem says, V'itzeisi v'itzalti v'ga'alti v'lakachti. It's over. It's over. Golus Mitzrayim is finished. The Jews should have stood up, dusted themselves off, walked out the door, and never turned back around. That was their destiny. That's what was supposed to happen. Instead, something else happens. And this, my dear friends, is the real story. Instead, what happens is the Jewish people don't even hear what Moshe Rabbeinu was saying. V'lo yishamu al Moshe. It's like he's talking to them in a different language. Why? Not because they don't believe, not because they need proof. At this point, even Paroi is not in their way. There's no Paroi. Nobody in Parshas Vayera, nobody said one word about Paroi. It doesn't even say that the Jewish people were afraid. Some commentaries interpret Koitzer Ruach as being fear. But that's not the Jewish people's reaction. The Jewish people's reaction is not one of fear. The Jewish people's reaction is V'lo yishamu. Moshe Rabbeinu's words mean nothing to them. It means nothing. What do you mean? They can't do anything with it. Why not? Well, because what Moshe Rabbeinu is telling them is that they're free people. And the truth as they know themselves, the truth the way they see themselves, is that they're abused slaves. So there's a complete communication breakdown here. And the Jews can't do anything with what Moshe Rabbeinu says. Of course, for all the rest of Jewish history, they'll remember it. They'll repeat it. They'll desperately try to internalize this within themselves and live up to this. But at the time that it was said, there's absolutely zero reaction. It's like planting seeds on concrete. There's nowhere for the seeds to germinate. Means that the Jewish people have been in exile for too long. They can't embrace their destiny. They can't embrace freedom. They can't be who it is that they're supposed to be, who they're intended to be. They can't. They don't know how. It's almost not even a choice. It's not a choice that they're making. It's completely lost on them. Later on, we're going to learn. Later on in Parsha Beshalach, we're going to learn that even in the end, when it was all over, and when the Jewish people, Beshalach Paro Yisrael, eventually when Paro actually forces the Jewish people out of Egypt, only 20% of the Jews left. Even then, only 20% of the Jewish people left. 80% of the Jewish people said, we're not going. All right, but that's later. But as for now, the Jewish people are just looking at themselves and they're saying, we're supposed to walk out of Mitzrayim. It wasn't just that they didn't know where they were going, right? Hashem says, I'm going to bring you to the promised land. They didn't even ask which land. It wasn't like they weren't even up to the part where they were asking, what are we going to eat while we travel? It's just the words of the Torah here are so powerful. V'lo shamu, it's the worst type of reaction ever. It's the worst type of reaction ever. V'lo shamu means Moshe Rabbeinu speaking, and his words are the Pashat. They're not going anywhere. They're circling around in the atmosphere. The Jews cannot take what Moshe Rabbeinu is saying. We need a third plan. The first plan has failed, and the second plan has failed. Again, the first plan was that Paro would send the Jewish people out. The second plan was that the Jewish people would go out without asking for Paro's consent. Boom! The Jewish people would just walk out. Both have failed. Paro is not interested, and the Jewish people are not interested. Paro is not interested because he likes his slaves, and the Jewish people aren't interested because they see themselves as slaves. Now comes the third plan. Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe, Hashem says to Moshe, go back to Paro. Wait a second, says Moshe. Wait a second, says Moshe. Now, before we move on, let's explain the Kal V'chomer. Wait a second, says Moshe. You want me to go back to Paro and tell him what? What do you want me to tell Paro? Surely Hashem didn't want Moshe to tell Paro the first thing he said, because that didn't work. Obviously, what does Hashem want Moshe to tell Paro? That the Jews don't need Paro's consent to leave Mitzrayim. That the Jews don't need Paro's permission. The Jews don't need Paro to leave Mitzrayim. Hashem tells Moshe, here's Hashem telling him, all right, the Jews don't hear me telling them that they don't need Paro to leave. The Jews don't hear me telling them they don't need the world's permission to be Jews. The Jews don't hear me telling them not to wait for Paro to give them permission to be Jewish. The Jews don't hear me say this. Go tell it to Paro. Moshe says, are you kidding me? If the Jews didn't hear this, how do you want Paro to hear this? If the Jews don't hear me saying that they don't need Paro's consent, you want Paro to tell the Jews that they don't need his consent? You want Paro to tell the Jewish people that they should leave Egypt without consulting Paro? What exactly do you want me to tell Paro? If the Jews cannot hear that they're free and they don't need Paro to let them go, then how do you want, if the Jews can't hear that Paro is irrelevant, then how can Paro himself hear that he's irrelevant? And so with that, Hashem says to Moshe, you misunderstood me. You know what's going to happen now? The Jews are slowly and painfully going to watch their captor Paro receive 10 plagues. And the story begins, and a whole new story begins from there. The 10 plagues which slowly and painfully dismantled the economy and the infrastructure and the majesty of Paro. The 10 plagues that brought the Egyptian nation to its knees. The 10 plagues that brought Paro to his knees. The 10 plagues that were eventually responsible for a civil war between the Egyptians, that had Paro running around himself throughout the land of Egypt, begging the Jewish people to leave. The 10 plagues which eventually forced Paro to physically push the Jews out of Mitzrayim. All of that would have been unnecessary. Would have been unnecessary if the Jews could have stood up and owned their own destiny and say, we are free. But alas, Hashem says, there's nobody to work with. Paro won't send them go and the Jewish people won't go. And so we have no choice. We have to work with both together with a process of 10 plagues. And so right here, the rest of the Parsha talks about these 7 out of 10 plagues take place in this week's Parsha. What are the 10 plagues going to do? What's the purpose of the 10 plagues? We talk about them so much. I mean, the Torah dedicates so much time to these plagues. What's the purpose of the plagues? For God to show how he can do magic tricks? No, that wasn't the point. Paro and the Jews had already seen that everybody's capable of doing miracles. So that wasn't the point. What was the point of the 10 plagues? For us to get revenge against Paro? No, that wasn't the purpose of the 10 plagues. What was the purpose of the 10 plagues? To afflict. It was judgment day, it was punishment day. In the end, so many of them died in the Yam Suf anyways. And by the way, the Jewish people stayed in Mitzrayim, according to this interpretation, an extra year, approximately, for the 10 plagues to happen. Who needs 10 plagues? Says Hashem to Moshe Rabbeinu, I was hoping to avoid all of this. But alas, I can't get a footing here, Hashem says. There's nobody, I'm getting no traction. We have no choice. We have to bring 10 plagues. What's the purpose of the plagues? The purpose of the plagues is to teach the world that there is a God. Yesh balabayis lebirazu. That somebody's in charge here. The purpose of the plagues is for Paro to realize that he has to listen to Hashem. And most importantly, to give the Jews 1 year where they watch the Rebbeinu Shalom play with their captors like a yo-yo, to slowly, please God, slowly and painfully shift the psychological perspective of the Jews so that they can start learning that they're not abused victims in the hands of the Egyptians. But that Egypt and all its majesty and Pharaoh and all his might were really just pawns in the hands of Hashem. Hashem did everything possible and more to give the Jews an opportunity to learn, to absorb what it is that happens, so the Jews could see, look, the mighty Egyptian economy, the Nile River that is responsible for feeding, for sustaining the land of Egypt, turned to blood. Frogs, lice, wild animals, infrastructure, everything gets destroyed. Hashem doesn't like, my dear friends, Hashem doesn't like destroying the world. Hashem created the world. Hashem wants the world to function in a healthy, beautiful way. So why does Hashem bring these plagues one after another? Hashem was hoping, so to speak, for the exodus of Egypt to happen without all of it. It was for the sake of education. Hashem wanted the Jews to watch these plagues manifest and for the Jews to say to themselves, oh my God, Hashem runs the world. Hashem is in charge. Hashem controls what happens. We need to let go of the stuff, of the way we perceive stuff, and allow Hashem to truly run the world. The plagues gave the Jews one last opportunity to slowly see, to watch their own captors implode, and to start to see themselves as being the apple of Hashem's eye, and as truly a liberated and free people. To change our perception of ourselves is very difficult. I dare say, in many ways, we're struggling. I'm sure you all understand this as we talk about this. In many ways, we're still struggling with the same things 3,500 years later. To change our perception of ourselves is difficult. To start seeing ourselves not as slaves to whatever it is that's trying to enslave us around us. To see ourselves, to know an opportunity when Hashem presents it to us, to own it, to stand up and to walk out. Sometimes this is difficult stuff. So Hashem gives us an opportunity where we watch in front of our own physical eyes the stuff that we worship, the stuff that seems impenetrable and unbreakable. Hashem watches, Hashem shows us where this thing collapses into and in itself implodes. So that, please God, we watch this and we take a lesson from it and we say to ourselves, oh my God, the world, the entire world is no more than a piece of paper. I got to tell you a quick story. When I was 13 years old, I was traveling from United States back home to Johannesburg, where I lived. I traveled through Canada, where my grandparents lived. In those days, they had something which today's kids, if you mention this to them, they won't know what in heaven's name you're talking about. But in those days, we had something, when you flew on an airplane, there was something called a ticket. And in those days, a ticket was an actual physical ticket. It was a piece of paper. And if there were multiple legs in your journey, there would be a few pieces of paper in the ticket, and they would, take them out one at a time. And when you showed up at the counter and you checked in your luggage, you had to actually give your ticket. So I'm 13 years old and I'm traveling, and for some reason, we had to go by a travel agency's office. I don't remember the details of why I had to. So my grandfather and I go, and he takes me to this Frum Yid, to this individual's travel agency office, and he's got to write something or amend something in my ticket so that I can fly back home to Johannesburg. And I'm holding this ticket and I'm looking at it in my hand, and I say to him in Yiddish, not meaning much, maybe, as a kid trying to sound philosophical, but, not trying to read too much into it. I said to him, Zayda, mit der Stickerle Papier kann man fliehen über die ganze Welt. With this piece of paper, you can fly across the whole world. And my grandfather corrected me. And he said, Nicht das sei das zu sagen. He said, no. That's not what it is. Don't say it like that. Couldn't figure out what I had possibly said wrong. With this piece of paper, you can fly across the whole world. No, said my grandfather, nein. Zog, as die ganze Welt ist nicht mehr wie ein Stickerle Papier. Don't say with this piece of paper I can fly across the whole world. Say the whole world is not more than a piece of paper. Hashem wanted the Jewish people to see that if they were ready to stand up, the mighty Egypt that had terrorized them for 210 years, that had abused them was ready to be shredded like a piece of paper if the Jews were ready to own it. But in order for the Jews to be ready to own it, the Jewish people had to stand up and say, we are free men. And that was a message that they couldn't hear. I had a relative who once went in to see the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He needed a particular surgery. I remember the details correctly, it was a surgery on his leg. And he had different options, different hospitals, different doctors, different this and that. And as he's standing there in front of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he says, Rebbe, how should I do the surgery? Should I go to this hospital, Sinai, Beth Israel, this, that? Which doctor should I use? This one, that one? And he's laying out all his options in front of the Rebbe, and the Rebbe's listening and listening. And when he's done, the Rebbe said to him, why don't you ask me for a bracha that you should heal without needing any surgery at all? So many different options, hospitals, doctors, ahina, hair, pa, 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 pa. Just ask me for a bracha that you shouldn't need any surgery. So he was a businessman and a shrewd businessman. He says to the Rebbe, that's exactly what I'm asking. That's mamash. You took the words out of my mouth. That was mamash exactly my question. I was mamash. That's exactly what I was saying. I was saying, Rebbe, give me a bracha that I shouldn't need any surgery at all. I should just walk out of here and it should be fine. That's exactly what I was saying. And the Rebbe said, no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. You did not walk in here with the emunah and betachan. You did not walk in here with the faith and the trust and the belief in Hashem that you could get a bracha and walk out of here without surgery. Don't lie to me. Don't bluff me. You came in here convinced that you needed surgery, so you're going to need surgery. You came in here convinced that you couldn't be healed without going through some kind of process, so you're going to have to go through the process. I'll give you a bracha that the process should be successful. I'll give you a bracha that you should find the right hospital. I'll give you a bracha that you should find the right doctor. But you were the one who came in here with a limited mindset. And that limited mindset is going to hold you hostage until you go through the process that you decided you were stuck in and you had no choice. Next time, the Rebbe said, when you go to a bracha, wherever it is that you go for a bracha, and in whatever form you daven to Hashem, always remember that Hashem is not bound by nature. And as a Jew who's connected to Hashem, neither are you. It was this message that is still reverberating 3,500 years throughout Jewish history, where the Torah calls upon every single one of us and says, if you'll only hear the words, v'itzeisi, v'itzalti, v'ga'alti, v'lakachti, if you'll only internalize the message of who you are and what you're capable of, the only paroi that's preventing you from walking out of Egypt right now is the paroi you're carrying around in your own head. If need be, says Hashem, I will tear that paroi to pieces. I will destroy its economy. I will afflict it with plagues and with illnesses that it has never seen and it has never heard of. If that's what it takes to teach you, the Jews, who you are, and if that's what it takes to teach you, the Jews, that you have nothing to fear, and if that's what it takes to teach you, the Jews, that when Hashem says you're free, you are free. If that's what it takes to teach you the lesson, I'll do it. But what a pity, Hashem says, such a waste of time. I was hoping we could avoid this all. I got 3 minutes left. Here's what I want to say. Many of us feel like we're watching a modern day version of the 10 plagues playing out in front of our eyes today. And we feel this way for good reason. We're dealing with a pandemic we've never seen before. Baruch Hashem, there is now a vaccine. Baruch Hashem, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Please God, the vaccine should go well. Please God, people should be healthy. Many of us are watching what's going on in the political scenario of the United States of America, and I'm not a politician. And I'm not here to make a political statement, but I think it's fair and it's true to say that many of us are watching this and we feel like everything we hold on to as so powerful is crumbling in front of our eyes. It seems like democracy itself is at stake here. the future of our country, the rise of anti-Semitism. We find ourselves holding on to the chair we're sitting on, at the table in front of us, and saying, Rabbeinu Shalom, what's going to happen next? 10 plagues striking at the very infrastructure of everything that seems impenetrable to us. So Hashem turns to every single Jew and says, V'hoitzesi, v'hitzalti, v'go'alti, v'lakachti, v'datem ki ani Hashem. Hashem turns to every Jew and says, listen, yes, you have to act responsibly. Yes, you have to follow the instructions of doctors and professionals. And yes, you have to protect yourselves. And yes, you have to do all the responsible things and all the logical things. And a Jew needs to function within the framework of nature, absolutely. But don't ever think that as a Jew, you're limited by nature. Don't ever think that you're a slave to Mitzrayim. Don't ever see yourselves as a victim of your society. As a Jew who is connected to Hashem, Vidatem ki ani Hashem, we are free. And when the time comes for us, please God, to leave Golus, may it happen speedily in our days. And Hashem gives us this opportunity. Hashem says, go, it's over. Please God, we won't repeat the same mistake or have to go through the same things the Jews in Egypt went through. Please God, when that time comes, we'll have remembered everything that we went through Jewish history for. And when Hashem opens the door for crying out loud, we'll take it and we'll go, because we'll always remember who we are. We'll never get too comfortable in Golus, no matter how comfortable the Golus is. And we'll always know that we don't belong here, no matter how long we've lived here, no matter how Baruch Hashem successful and comfortable, and no matter what, a Jew looks at the world around him and says, Hashem will do whatever it is that Hashem will do. Hashem, the Eibishter is the Balabos. Hashem runs the world. Of course, we have to act responsibly. Of course. But as Jews, we remember that we're connected to something higher and something greater. Vidatem ki ani Hashem Elokeichem hamoitzi eschem mitachas yad Mitzrayim. A Jew knows that at the end of the day, we are safe in the hands of Hashem. And for that reason and that reason alone, we are safe and we have nothing to fear. Again, saying we are safe and having nothing to fear doesn't mean we act irresponsibly. God forbid. We act responsibly and act according to Torah and always follow the halacha. But my point today is the mindset. The mindset of the Jews, no matter how long we're in Mitzrayim, we're not of Mitzrayim. No matter how long we're in a particular limitation, we're not of that limitation. We are free. Please God, we shouldn't need another 10 plagues to absorb that message. And even then, only 20% of the Jews absorbed it. Because it can be such a foreign message to us. Live in a place for long enough time, marinate in a mindset for long enough, and it becomes part of you. The mindset that every Jew should marinate in is these words of Hashem. No matter how long and no matter how bitter and no matter how painful the Golus has been, when the time of redemption has arrived, it's over. The Jew stands up and walks out as long as he or she is ready. May Hashem protect us that as we enter into the new month of Shvat, that the Jews should be healthy and should be protected and should be safe all around the world. People all around the world should be healthy and should be safe and should be protected. Peace, tranquility should be restored everywhere. All human beings deserve to live in safety and with peace of mind. But as Jews, we're called upon to be one step higher. We're called upon to remember that no matter what, we're always the people of Hashem. We're always godly people. And when we hear that voice of Moshe Rabbeinu in our heads, in our souls, calling us and telling us to stand up and own it and be free, may it be Hashem's will that we be free and we embrace the freedom that is true to the very core of our essence and never mistake who it is that we are. the world will only respect us for it. Have a wonderful Shabbos.